European lawmakers raise placards reading, "Stop the War in Syria," in protest against airstrikes launched by the US, Britain and France in Syria last week, criticizing the legitimacy of the operation, as French President Emmanuel Macron delivers his speech at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. Macron is expected to outline his vision for the future of Europe, to push for deep reforms of the 19-nation eurozone, and will launch a drive to seek European citizens' opinions on the European Union's future. AP people participate in a protest against the rape of an 8-year-old girl in Kathua near Jammu, and a teenager in Unnao, Uttar Pradesh state, in Bangalore, India. Reuters fireworks are set off as the final performance takes place during the closing ceremony for the 2018 Commonwealth Games. The wreckage of the Scientific Studies and Research Center compound in the Barzeh district, north of Damascus, after the United States, UK and France launched strikes against Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's regime early on April 14 in response to an alleged chemical weapons attack after mulling military action for nearly a week. Syrian state news agency SANA reported several missiles hit a research center in Barzeh, north of Damascus, destroying a building that included scientific labs and a training center. AFP, Getty. Indian activists gathered to show support for the chairperson of the Delhi Commission for Women, Swati Maliwal, who is on a hunger strike against the alleged rapes in Uttar Pradesh, Jammu and Kashmir, in New Delhi, India. According to news reports, Maliwal is sitting on hunger strike, demanding that authorities take strict actions against the alleged rapists. Shiite pilgrims carry a symbolic casket outside Imam Musa al-Kadhim's shrine to mark the anniversary of his death in Baghdad, Iraq. Reuters seasonal winds wash tons of debris ashore at Matahari Terbit Beach, near Sanur, Bali, Indonesia. Reuters Syrian onlookers gather around rescue teams clearing the rubble at the site of an explosion of unknown origin which wrecked a multi-story building the previous night in the war-battered country's northwestern city of Idlib. The cause of the explosion in the jihadist-held city, which killed more than 10 people and wounded 80, according to the Britain-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitoring Group, was not immediately clear. AFP, Getty. Protesters try to block French gendarmes during an evacuation operation in the Zone Z Deferred Development Zone, in Notre-Dame-des-Landes, near Nantes, France. Reuters competitors crossed the start line at the annual Pyongyang Marathon. AFP, Getty. The body of journalist Yasser Murtaha, 31, is carried during his funeral in Gaza City. He was shot by Israeli troops while reporting on Palestinian protests on the Gaza-Israel border. Reuters supporters of the former South African President Jacob Zuma rally prior to his appearance in the KwaZulu-Natal High Court on corruption charges in Durban. Zuma, 75, arrived to face corruption charges linked to a multi-billion-dollar 1990s arms deal. The graft case against him was postponed until June 8 after a brief 15-minute hearing. AFP, Getty. Palestinian protesters run during clashes with Israeli troops at Israel-Gaza border. Reuters Presidents Hassan Rouhani of Iran, Tayyip Erdogan of Turkey and Vladimir Putin of Russia pose before their meeting in Ankara. Reuters South African school children pause next to a portrait of the late South African anti-apartheid campaigner Winnie Madikizela Mandela, wife of African National Congress leader Nelson Mandela, at her house in Soweto. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa paid tribute to Winnie, who died on April 2, saying that Nelson Mandela's former wife was a voice of defiance against white minority rule. AFP, Getty. Jewish priests and civilians take part in the Kohanim prayer during the Passover holiday at the Western Wall in the Old City of Jerusalem. AFP, Getty. Pope Francis greets the crowd at St. Peter's Square after the Easter Sunday Mass in the Vatican. Christians around the world are marking the Holy Week, commemorating the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, leading up to his resurrection on Easter. AFP, Getty. Mourners hold back a relative of Palestinian Hamdan Abu Amshah, who was killed along the Israel border with Gaza, during his funeral in Beit Hanan town. Reuters Israeli soldiers shot tear gas grenades towards the Palestinian tent city protest commemorating Land Day. The day marks the killing of 6 Arab Israelis during 1976 demonstrations against Israeli confiscations of Arab land. AFP, Getty. An emotional Steve Smith is comforted by his father Peter as he fronts the media at Sydney International Airport. Steve Smith, David Warner and Cameron Bancroft were flown back to Australia following investigations into alleged ball tampering in South Africa. Getty. French gendarmes escort the coffin of the late Lieutenant Colonel Arnaud Beltrame transported by car during a funeral procession, leaving the Pantheon as part of a national tribute in Paris. The French president will lead a national commemoration to hostage swap policeman Arnaud Beltrame killed in jihadist attack. AFP, Getty. Russian President Vladimir Putin visits a memorial made for the victims of a fire in a multi-story shopping center in the Siberian city of Kemerovo. Officials say that the fire escapes were blocked and a PA system was turned off during the fire that killed over 50 people. Kremlin pool photo via AP. At least 64 shoppers have been killed in fire at a shopping center in Russia. A further 16 people were still missing after flames broke out at the 4-story Winter Cherry Mall in the city of Kemerovo in Siberia, according to Russian Emergencies Minister Vladimir Puchkiv. The fire was extinguished in the morning after burning through the night. Parts of the building were still smoldering and the floors of the cinema hall had caved in places, another emergency official said. Russian Emergencies Ministry via Reuters. Syrian civilians gathering for their evacuation from the town of Arban in the eastern Ghouta region on the outskirts of the capital Damascus, following a deal with the regime. The deal is expected to see some 7,000 people bust from Arban and Zamalka towns and the district of Jobar to a rebel-dominated part of northern Syria. AFP, Getty. Students attend the March for Our Lives in Washington. In the wake of the Florida attack, there has been a widespread effort to ban assault rifle. Getty. Police at the scene of a hostage situation in a supermarket in Trebes. An armed man took hostages in a supermarket in southern France, killing 3 and injuring about a dozen others, police said. A French minister confirmed the gunman had been shot dead by police. Reuters. A boy rows his boat in the polluted waters of the Brahmaputra River on World Water Day in Guwahati, India. Reuters. Kosovo's opposition lawmakers release a tear gas canister inside the country's parliament and before a vote for an agreement to ratify or not a border demarcation deal signed in 2015 with Montenegro. AFP, Getty. People carrying luggage leave the Russian embassy in London and board a van bearing diplomatic plates. Dozens of people including adults with children arrived at the Russian embassy in the morning and then left carrying luggage in vehicles bearing diplomatic registration plates. Britain last week announced the expulsion of 23 Russian diplomats over the spy poisoning row, prompting a tit-for-tat response from Moscow. AFP, Getty. The Soyuz MS-08 spacecraft is mounted on the launch pad at the Russian-leased Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. AFP, Getty. President Vladimir Putin walks out of a voting booth at a polling station during Russia's presidential election in Moscow. AFP, Getty. People take part in a pensioners' protest to demand decent pensions in Barcelona. Thousands of people across the country took part in mass demonstrations called by main Spanish workers' unions demanding rises of state pensions in accordance with the Consumer Price Index. AFP, Getty. Russian President Vladimir Putin visits the Almazov National Medical Research Center in St. Petersburg. AFP, Getty. Vladimir Putin chairs a meeting with members of the Security Council in Moscow. Reuters. German Chancellor Angela Merkel is sworn in by the President of the German lower house during the government's swearing-in ceremony at the Bundestag in Berlin. Merkel, head of the Christian Democratic Party (CDU), starts her 4th term as German Chancellor, capping months of political uncertainty as she bartered with her rivals of the SPD to help govern Europe's top economy in a grand coalition. AFP, Getty. Nepali students of University of Dhaka light candles in memory of the victims of the U.S. Bangla aircraft crash in Nepal, Bangladesh. Reuters. Rescuers work to save passengers from a plane crash at Kathmandu Airport in Nepal. AP, French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte Macron pose for photographs as they visit the Taj Mahal. AFP, Getty. France's far-right party, Front National (FN), President Marine Le Pen applauds former U.S. President advisor Steve Bannon after his speech during the Front National Party annual Congress, in Lille, northern France. AFP, Getty. A television screen showing pictures of U.S. President Donald Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un at a railway station in Seoul. AFP, protesters form triangles with their hands during a demonstration for women's rights in Bilbao, Spain. Reuters. A laborer works on a salt pan in the outskirts of the Nagar district in the Indian state of Rajasthan ahead of International Women's Day. AFP, Getty. Sri Lanka's army soldiers and police personnel stand near a vandalized building in Dagana, a suburb of Kandy. Extremists Buddhist mobs swept through the town on Monday, burning at least 11 Muslim-owned shops and homes. Sri Lanka's president declared a state of emergency Tuesday amid fears that anti-Muslim attacks in the central hill town could spread. AP, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrives for the opening of the first session of the 13th National People's Congress (NPC) at the Great Hall of the People in Beijing. The NPC has over 3,000 delegates and is the world's largest parliament or legislative assembly, though its function is largely as a formal seal of approval for the policies fixed by the leaders of the Chinese Communist Party. The NPC runs alongside the annual plenary meetings of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference, CPPCC, together known as Liang, or Two Meetings. A female protester stands up with the words, Berlusconi sei scaduto, written on her body, translating as, Berlusconi, you've expired, as Silvio Berlusconi stands during voting of the political and regional elections, in Milan, Italy. Russian President Vladimir Putin delivers a speech during a rally to support his bid in the upcoming presidential election at Luzhniki Stadium in Moscow. Reuters: a light turns red outside of Germany's Krupp-Mannesmann steel factory. German officials and industry groups warned U.S. President Donald Trump that he risks sparking a trade war with his closest allies if he goes ahead with plans to impose steep tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. People dance during Holi festival celebrations in Kathmandu, Nepal. Indian fans as the funeral procession of the late Bollywood actress Sridevi Kapoor passes through Mumbai. Getty candles are left in tribute to murdered Slovakian investigative reporter Jan Kuciak, 27, and his fiancée Martina, 27, at Slovak National Uprising Square in Bratislava. A leading Slovak newspaper says organized crime may have been involved in the shooting death that shocked Slovakia. The bodies of Kuciak and cousin Irova were found Sunday evening in their house in the town of Velika Maka, east of the capital.